deeper look at the structures of the eye and what they do. The eye is a hollow ball that is divided into 3 layers. And the hollowness is filled with fluid. So it's the wall that has 3 layers. And these layers are called tunics. So we're going to go through the structure in terms of the tunics. The first tunic is the fibrous tunic. This is the outer layer of the eye. And the fibrous tunic is avascular. So there are no blood vessels in the fibrous tunic. It has 2 parts, the cornea and the sclera. In the middle is the vascular tunic. And you can tell by its name, it has lots of blood vessels. The vascular tunic has the iris. It has the ciliary body, which is divided into the ciliary muscle and ciliary process. Then it also has the choroid. The innermost layer is the neural tunic. And this has the retina. Then there are some other parts of the eye that we're going to look at that aren't part of a tunic. So we're going to have a category here of other. So for this, we're going to have the lens, the suspensory ligaments, the anterior cavity, which has aqueous humor, and the posterior cavity, which has vitreous humor. So this is our outline. Now we can start looking at these parts on the eye. So we'll start with fibrous tunic. The cornea is right here. It is the clear front part of the eye that light passes through. Then the sclera is all the white of the eye. So it's all here, goes all the way around the whole back of the eyeball. All of that is sclera. And the sclera is very thick and tough. So it functions to protect the inside parts of the eye because it's so thick and tough. And it also holds the eye's shape. Then if we move on to vascular, the iris is right here. That is the color part of your eye. So like if you say that you have blue eyes or green eyes or brown eyes, that is the iris. This is a smooth muscle, and its job is to control the size of the pupil. So that adjusts how much light is let into the eye. So the pupil is just the hole in the center of the iris. If you look at the iris here, remember we're looking through its cut, so it's just half the circle, but the pupil is just the hole in the center of the iris. Then we have the ciliary body. It is right here. And remember, this is a cross section. It goes all the way around. So like here you can see the ciliary body up here. It's a complete circle. It goes all the way around the eye. We're just looking at a section of it. So it has its two parts. The ciliary muscle controls the lens. So we had a couple of parts that we listed under other. This is the lens right here. And these little strings here that you see are ciliary or suspensory ligaments. So the ciliary muscle is what connects to the lens by those ligaments. And the muscle controls the lens, and this is through that oculomotor nerve, so it's cranial nerve 3. It stimulates the muscle to adjust the lens. And this is how you focus light. And by the way, up here, the iris is also stimulated by cranial nerve 3, the oculomotor. Then the ciliary process, which is the other part of the body, makes aqueous humor. So the anterior cavity, all this area here and up here, kind of all this here, here, it goes all the way around. All that area, that empty space in the front of the eye is the anterior cavity. And the aqueous humor fills that anterior cavity. So the aqueous humor is made here in the ciliary process, and then it flows up into to fill this anterior cavity. Okay, the next part of the vascular tunic is the choroid. So that's all this tissue back here in the back part of the eye. Comes all the way back, comes all the way up here. It's the majority of the vascular tunic. So all of this is choroid. The choroid is dark so that it can absorb stray light. And you can see it has a lot of blood vessels. So the neighboring tissues are avascular. So it's responsible for nourishing itself and its neighbors. So all the blood vessels you see here in the back of the eye, those are all in that choroid. Then we can move on to the neural tunic. The neural tunic is this inner layer. So you can see it here, and it comes on up like this. It's not in the front of the eye. It's only in the back portion of the eye. So this is all the neural tunic, which just has one part, the retina. The retina is the part of the eye that sees. It has your photoreceptors, and you have two types of photoreceptors, rods and cones. These are what respond to light and send signals to the brain. There's a couple of special spots on the neural tunic to look at. If you look very closely right here, there's this little dent. That little dent is the fovea centralis. This area has lots of cones, and cones give you sharp, clear vision. So that spot is where you have your best vision. When you're reading, you use your fovea centralis because you have to be able to make out the letters. Another spot is right here. This area is the optic disc. This is also known as the blind spot. There are no photoreceptors here. So whatever lands on that part of your retina, you can't see. And you don't notice this because your brain fills it in. But we'll actually do an activity in lab where you'll find your blind spot. This is your optic nerve. So cranial nerve 2. The optic disc occurs where the optic nerve is. And this is the only place at the optic disc where the retina is attached. So this whole back area of the eye is the posterior cavity. And it is filled with vitreous humor. And the vitreous humor, it fills the majority of your eye, and it holds the retina in place. So the retina is attached right here at the optic disc. Everywhere else, the retina is just floating on the vitreous humor. So because it's just kind of floating there, that's how you can get a detached retina. If that vitreous humor, if the level gets too low, or if you get hit in the head and that vitreous humor jostles around too much, you can get a detached retina because it's just floating in place on that humor. Right, so there's an overview of the parts of the eye, and we'll get into more detail of how the eye works in later videos.